All right, let's bring Kevin in. He has his band is going to be performing.
Kevin Costner in the Modern West.
That's right. They're going to be at the Kent Stage. There he is. They'll be there this Saturday at the Kent Stage at 8 p.m. It's at 175 East Main Street in Kent. What's happening, my man? How's it going? And for tickets, go to thekentstage.com. That's thekentstage.com. You like this music stuff, don't you?
Yeah, I like what it's been able to do to take me around the world in places I didn't think I'd ever end up.
Have you always been a musician, or did you learn this later in life?
I trained classically on piano when I was for about 4 years, and felt like from 11 to 15, and it was just that. It was classical, and I thought, I can't keep doing this, and my parents wouldn't let me get outside the lines of playing that music, and I realized, man, if they would have let me play one song and some girl would have sat next to me, I would have kept going. But I really stopped piano and hadn't played it for about 30 years. But, I was in traveling choirs and did all that business. So music was a little bit before the acting.
My parents made me play the flute when I was a kid. Is there anything worse than that? I mean, a young boy playing the flute?
As a boy?
I still have a complex. Look at the way I cross my legs. It's all from playing the flute.
Therapy.
Very effeminate.
It's therapy. I tell you, the people that love us the most, the damage that can come of it.
Really? I mean, what did your parents do when they? Where did you grow up, and what did your parents do?
My dad came out of the Dust Bowl, and seeing that we're in the country just took that nosedive. He came out and saw his father lose everything, and he had one job in his whole life, worked for the Edison Company. It's a power company. And he was a handsome, fist-fighting, tough guy. I mean, he looked like Paul Newman. He was just tough. But because he'd seen the country go through that, he never took another job. He didn't want to lose the one he had. He was just a hard bark kind of guy.
Did that carry over to you? I mean, you have, I'm sure, ridiculous amounts of money, but oftentimes people, even with ridiculous amounts of money, it's still, if that's how the way that they were brought up, it's ingrained that you could lose that at any time. Almost, you think?
You're really right. I remember kind of early lessons for me, which is we didn't have a lot. I mean, the tennis shoes I had was also the tennis shoes I played basketball in. So when a guy had this extra pair of shoes in his locker, that was like I couldn't believe it. I felt, that was a rich guy.
Right.
Right. That was a rich guy to me. And, and I remember, going to restaurants, the smaller ones, and I'd see that side order thing, like maybe get another thing of bacon, right? And my dad said, you know what that costs? And so I grew up with the idea that you didn't get side orders.
Yeah.
That was, again, for rich people. And we weren't poor, but we didn't have a lot.
Yeah. No, I mean, people sometimes, if that's the way that you were, especially your father who saw that. I mean, your father probably, the economy got better. He could have gone out, got 10 other jobs. He could have done whatever, but that really affected him.
Well, for me, it was, you don't know how to work, because he would say, look at it, you had to dig a ditch. There'd be 50 guys willing to dig it faster than you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I really grew up going, I guess I don't know how to work, but now people tell me I work harder than anybody that they know. But it was like, if you mowed the lawn, he'd go, well, it's still not edged.
Yeah.
You got to wash that thing down. So I was thinking, wow, there's a lot
What did he think when I guess at some point you told him, I want to become an actor. Now that sounded like, it sounds, I don't know your father, but that kind of sounds like the kind of thing where he goes, son, that's not a real job.
Yeah, we have a song about that. It's called 90 Miles an Hour. It's a kind of a metaphor for my life, which is that, when, it's like when I told him I wanted to do acting, he just said, oh, no. And when it actually finally happened for me, he couldn't believe it. And then when I told him I was going to do directing, he said, no, stick with that acting thing. It's just going really good. And so, when I knew I was going back into music, the person I did not tell was my dad. It's called 90 Miles an Hour. You might check it out. But it is a metaphor for my life. But listen, like I think the first thing we said, which is the people that kind of love us the most are the ones that somehow, without knowing it, can almost hold you back.
So you really like this music. His website is kevincostnermodernwest.com. If you had to you had to choose one or the other. Would you get rid of music or get rid of acting?
I think I like the hours of music a lot better than I do.
Bet, yeah.
Of the thing. But I've always been a storyteller, whether it's 3 hours or 3 minutes. And both things have kind of balanced me in a way. We just did this record called "Famous for Killing Each Other," which was when I was making Hatfield and McCoy's. Every day I was kind of waking up in this feeling, and it's a very cool record, and it's all in an Appalachian style. And I would have never done that. So, I can't give up the movies for music. And every time we go on the road, we're kind of like kids on a vacation, go, oh, we'll be together. We'll write all these good songs.
Yeah.
We never write one. But I've written 2 screenplays on the road playing music, and vice versa, making the movies. We've made a couple of records.
I have a theory I was reading about you. When I have a guest come in, I have my researcher gives me all the stuff on him, and it talked about how you moved around a lot as a kid in California, right?
Yeah.
And I have a theory that's why you went into acting, and that because I did the same thing as a kid. We moved around a lot. I had a single mother, and every year, I was just telling the story on the air yesterday, I don't think I went to the same school 2 years in a row. And it was so incredibly difficult to make friends when I'd end up at a new place. And I was never like a total nerd or dork or anything, but I always felt as if I didn't fit in. And I really think that's why I got into the lowest rung of entertainment industry.
Stop it.
I really think that's why I did it, because I was looking for some sort of acceptance. Do you think that influenced you into why you got into acting?
I think I was pretty adjusted, but the truth was, when I got to about 30 and I looked back, it really was hard on me. When I really kind of broke it down and looked back at it, I lost a lot of confidence. The last 4 years of high school, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, were all different schools, and that's where you're kind of learning about the girl thing, and
right.
and basically you're learning from dummies anyway, guys. What about this? And some guy's an expert. He didn't know shit. He didn't know anything.
Right.
But I think I did lose a lot of confidence. I don't know that it, and it got old making friends, because I don't feel like I was an outcast either. I was just kind of like, okay, I could fit. But after 4 years in a row, and usually whatever
school, a lot of work,
whatever school I went to, I played sports. So, some guy was going to have, that was going to be his year. Well, I was a new guy, and I took his position. So, I'm walking out to the parking lot, and there he is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I had to kind of battle. I had to do a lot of things, and I think I got tired of it. I'm a plodder. I mean, things don't go fast for me. I usually get where I want to go, but acting didn't happen for me at 18. I wasn't Tom Cruise sliding across the living room. I was, my first movie, Big Chill, I was cut out. So my first check was 27, 28 years old. So when people look at my life, they have a tendency not to want to put it in reverse. I mean, I stared up at the ceiling wondering how in the world I was going to make this, or if I even was.
Yeah. Well, it almost probably a guy like you then appreciates it more, because unlike someone who was just almost handed it, I'm sure very few people are just handed a job in acting or whatever, but the longer you work at it, the more you appreciate it, because you realize how tough it was to get to that point.
There is a lot of that, though. There is a lot of handing. And, I mean, to be quite honest, sometimes people change their names and you find out that their dad's really famous or their mom really famous.
Yeah.
You go, wow, it does happen. I didn't know a soul. I didn't know. I mean, the first interview I went for, I was a dip. I was a dumbass. I wore a suit. You know what I mean? I really started at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was my dad. You wear a suit, you want to get a job?
Right.
Well, I swear to God, I think they almost threw me out of the office because they went, well, this guy's not.
But you know what? In a way, your naivete might have actually helped you, because I found that the things that I've done in life, I learned myself, meaning radio. I didn't go to school for radio or anything. Ever since I was 8 years old, I wanted to be on the radio. So I had to figure out a way to make that happen. We do this big festival. You might see Rover Fest, which is coming up next month.
Yeah, I just stared at it. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean,
I watched
it's
it 3
almost
times.
mesmerizing, all those asses and boobs up there. But that's put on by me and my company, and my company is basically just me. But you have to learn that. This is our 6th year doing it from the ground up. So by starting out as a complete moron, no offense, you really had to learn every step of the way.
It's true. It's true. And it is impressive what you've been able to do. And there's no rules. I mean, the notion of conventional wisdom, right? What if everybody's wrong?
Yeah.
And, for you, it's like the mongoose playing with the cobra. You didn't know any different. You just fought your way.
Yeah.
You fight your way to this. And, people, maybe look at you right now, but they don't want to put your life in reverse. They don't want to see traveling with your mom, all the schools, and a lot of doubt that slips in, and now, you kind of stood your ground. You made your mark. You play your music loud. You have an audience. It's America. It's America.
When you mentioned The Big Chill, when you were cut out from that movie, so you film all these scenes for this movie, then they cut you out of the whole thing. Had you told like a bunch of chicks and stuff like, I'm going to be in this movie, and then the thing comes out and they go, you're such a liar, Kevin. You're not in it. You're not in this movie.
Well, it's funny, when I finally told everybody that I had gone to school with that I was going to be an actor, the first thing is, well, what have you done? And the truth was wasn't going to be anything, and I started to feel embarrassed about that. I didn't have a resume that included anything, and so when you say to somebody, what are you going to be? They say, well, we'll prove it. Show me that piece of paper. And I finally, thought, I don't need a piece of paper to declare that I'm an actor.
Right.
I didn't have any proof. But, there was a moment in time where I kind of said, you know what? I quit being embarrassed that this is what I'm going to be. And the load shifted off my shoulders at that moment, which is, it's like, I know what I'm going to do. I haven't done it yet, but I know exactly what I'm going to do. And that's a big... that's all you want in life is, some kind of whisper, like, what do I want to be? Because if I knew what I wanted to do, I think the road gets wider, it gets easier to see.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people just making this kind of conventional trail. I went to university and I felt like a rat going after the cheese. I just wasn't sure what it was. A business degree, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, did you get like the finance or marketing or something? Yeah,
I did that, but I knew that I was on the bad end of the bell graph. I would be in those classes, and I knew that I was the worst one in the class.
Not the brightest guy in there. Yeah, not stupid, but you weren't motivated to do that. You didn't want to do that.
Yeah, I couldn't do that, and I wasn't. It was interesting because I clearly knew who was good. I could look at that room and I go, "That's the smartest dude. That's the smartest girl." And I thought, yeah, I'd have them come along with me.
You go to college, you play 3 sports. You play baseball, basketball, and football, I think, right?
Right. Not in college, but I played those in high school.
Did girls throw themselves at you? You're a good-looking guy. I could say that as a straight man. And being athletic.
No, I was when I was 16, which made me a sophomore. I was 5'2". I was little. And I didn't have a problem with that at first until the girl said, "Can I see your license?" Because isn't that what everybody wants to do? Let's see the picture of your license.
Yeah.
So I was kind of happy about that. So, when they looked and they said 5'2", and first girl said that, and then the second girl said that. And about the third girl, it said, "Hey, I took my license back, and I realized that I was kind of short. That and all the school, when I told you I felt a little setback, I did.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't that swift. I like girls plenty, but I have to say I had one date, and that was the prom. I went to all those kind of backward dances, the Sadie Hawkins things.
You're right, the girl with that, yeah.
Yeah, and never with the girl that I wanted. Always
the big hefty girl,
right? The girl that came to you first, kind of really came to you first, and then you didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings, and that was right. But the girl that you kind of thought maybe you want to be, you just stare at on the other side of the gym.
Yeah. Did you?
So it didn't work for me. The girl thing didn't work for me.
Kevin Costner is here with us. Him and his band are going to be at the Kent Stage Saturday night at 8 p.m. thekentstage.com for tickets. Because I know are you done filming this movie? You were filming a movie here. Is that still going on?
Yeah, I'm going to finish next week. I came in May, and so that's done next week.
Well, and so this is almost like you're wrapping things up. You got your band out here. You're going to play. This is the part. Is the schedule? You mentioned the schedule of acting. I've heard people describe it. It sounds incredibly boring. There's a lot of waiting around for these guys to set up the lights and that kind of stuff.
You have to. It has to fit you because it is just exactly what you said. And I see people that are even in the industry, like my agents or managers will come out. They can't stay on the set more than an hour. They have to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And they only come because they want to make sure no other agent or manager is kind of trying to poach you. But not everybody is built for it. It's a 12-hour days, and the people that make movies are very much like gypsies.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody I'm working with right now, in about 2 weeks, is going to be somewhere else, and maybe another place in the world.
Yeah.
We live out of suitcases.
Do you, obviously, when you're directing a movie, there's more to do. So it's, when you're acting, there's probably a lot of downtime. When you act in a movie and you're not directing, are you like a pilot who maybe is like on a flight and some other guy's flying the plane? Are you always like, just second guessing what the guy's doing or thinking what you would do differently?
Not so much what I'd do differently, but I'm, maybe a coach on the floor, which if the director wants to take advantage of me, gives me a nod. Sometimes maybe I can say something to someone that they don't have to say something to.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm very content to let someone, to direct. I'm just, I'm the kind of guy that likes to play for a coach. So I don't mind having a director. I've directed myself, but if I wanted that job, I would have taken it. So I don't find myself. I might say to somebody, "Hey, look, do you see that I'm doing this little thing over here?" Which is code for if you want to cover that, and if they say no, then I just let it go.
Is there sort of sitting here in the Midwest, and we think about actors, Hollywood, movie sets, that kind of stuff. To me, I would think that there's a lot of egos going on, and that some people can be very difficult. Is that a myth, or do things run pretty smoothly on these things?
That's not a myth, but I've been really lucky in my sets. I haven't ever had anybody pull that. I don't pull it. So people that come on a set that maybe might go to the next movie and you hear some story and you go, really? They don't, the sets, I don't like it. I don't, there's some people that you've heard the thing, well, I'm more creative when there's drama. I like to stir it up. I like to get everybody revved up. Not around me.
Yeah.
Don't do it, because I don't do well with that. I don't like drama. I don't like it if someone dresses down a makeup artist or an extra. I don't like it when it bugs me. It upsets me, and I'll actually say something to a director or whoever. And I said, don't do it, because number one, we need these people. So I don't like the drama, I don't like the edge of things. That doesn't mean somebody doesn't have to be talked to.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean somebody has to straighten up, and fly right. And that's okay. But this thing about ego, there are people that think they can just crush people. There are people that are pretty fractured that are very successful. And, and when you see it, it's kind of embarrassing. You want to say, hey, knock it off. It's like, wow, we're really lucky. And I mean it. I'm not just kind of saying we're pretty lucky. However hard you work, good for you. But, listen, my kids, right? I tell my kids every day they're special, right? I tell them that. I say, you're special. I love you. They're special. But, I always finish that sentence with, but, by the way, being special doesn't make you better than anybody. And they get that. And I think that some people who have special lives, who feel a little special, somehow they've made this weird jump that they're better. And when you see that, it's ugly.
Yeah.
Okay? I tell you what, being humble is pretty sexy. Right? Being humble is a pretty cool quality. Some people think of it as, but it's not. I think humility is a pretty cool kind of way to be.
How many kids do you have?
I have 7.
7 kids?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're kidding me. 7 kids. Ranging in age from what to what?
28 to 3.
28 to 3. My God, you're a busy guy.
Yeah,
wow.
I have a noisy house.
Well, this is interesting because you say, being humble and stuff. It must be, you have a real challenge as a parent. A bigger challenge than most people. People look at you and they go, oh, that would be great to be rich and famous, be like Kevin Costner. You probably have nannies and all this kind of stuff. But on the flip side of that, your kids can get a sense of entitlement almost because of who their father is.
Right.
And you have a real challenge to keep them grounded.
Well, I think that is the job, and you've outlined it pretty carefully, because, my money has not been a big deal. Money was a big deal for me. I figured out if I could make $100 a day, I went out and framed houses. I worked commercial fishing boats. That's how I paid for myself in college. And I was out there in the world's deadliest catch bullshit.
BS. I'll rephrase that.
Sorry
Kevin.
about that.
That's
I mean, but
okay.
those are the kind of jobs I had, and I actually would sit on a couch and go, if I could make $100 a day, I would literally go like 365 days. You know what I mean?
Right.
That was the math I did. That's not the math they've seen or done. They had a pair of tennis shoes in their locker.
How do you motivate your kids to want to do, their own careers and that kind of stuff?
I've been lucky. I've been really lucky with my children. I've been, my kids all have, they never embarrassed me, and that doesn't mean they were perfect children, but I never had to like stop my job to go straighten out something. They know how to maneuver their own lives. They understood that a lot of kids that wanted to get close to them really kind of maybe wanted to meet me. So they figured that out, and I remember my daughter finally went to Argentina to go to school, and we changed her name because we didn't want her to be, at all kidnapped or anything like that. And her whole life, she wanted to be her Annie. She wanted to not use she wanted people to like her for Annie, right? Not Annie Costner. And so she really prided herself on that, went to Brown University, did all this stuff. And she went down there and she changed her name. And I had one of the greatest kind of rewards as a father. I got this call back from her in Argentina. She'd been down there for 2 months. And she said, I want our name back. She goes, I miss my name. And she, this thing that she had fought against, her whole life, she was down there and she'd gone under this name. And it was kind of cool even when she slipped down there. But she finally called me and she said, I want our name back.
Yeah.
And she knew who she was. And that was a very cool call to get. So in the kind of lineup of cool things that have happened to me in my life, what are they? That was one.
You were married, you had your first wife. You're married now, right?
Yeah.
So this is your second wife or third wife? Second wife. Was it tough after a divorce raising kids?
It was. We talked about the girl thing. The first girl I dated, I married. And essentially the second girl in my life I dated, I married. So I was with my first wife for 20 years. We met at 19. I was married at 22. And then I was single for about 8-9 years. And then the first girl that I met that I really felt like I could see, I married her. So we've been together 15 years. You got married so young that, it's almost unbelievable then you get famous. Girls are just throwing themselves at you and stuff. It's pretty much, it's almost impossible to keep a relationship going in those circumstances, don't you think? Yeah, it's not the simplest, and there's a lot of angles on what you're talking about. I think Chris Rock says it pretty funny. He says a man is only as loyal as his opportunities, his choices. And he was talking about some big fat guy. You got one chick, man. Yeah, I'm loyal. He said that's because that's your choice.
Right. What about the older that you've gotten? Yeah. So when you were younger, because you got married at such a young age, and you get all of a sudden girls are throwing themselves at you. You're a normal guy. You go, man, there's a 10 throwing herself at me. It just. I know as a guy, sometimes those situations happen, and you're like, I have to take advantage of this because there's something in the male brain that's like, this isn't normal that a chick is throwing themselves at me. I have to take advantage of this right now. But now that you, in age, now that you're older and you're married again now, is it easier to fight that temptation? Well, you see it, and nothing in your life changes. What your DNA of who you are, and you recognize outward beauty. You see it, and it's like, and you see it now in a way you never saw it before. I mean, just looking at that little loop you got out there, those girls are so beautiful and so kind of, and they're probably younger than your daughters. That's right. Kevin. That's right. I got it. Well, I can see it all. I mean, it's like one of those girls usually come up to me and go, "My mom loves you." Yeah. Oh man, does that make you feel old? Or you're like, oh God. No, I remember one time sitting with Sean Connery. We were making Untouchables, and I was in this
thing, and I was talking to him, and behind him, this girl just kept trying to get my attention. And I thought, well, I can't just break this conversation off to go. I'm talking with Sean, but I will mosey over there, So I finished my conversation with Sean. She's very, very pretty. She was very insistent. And I walk over, and I get to her, and I lean over, and she says, "Can you get me Sean Connery?" And I went, I thought, but I've always, not that I've handled my life perfectly, but I kind of understand. I kind of see things pretty clearly.
You have I don't know if it's a son or a daughter with one of the, and I don't know what the relation is, but this Rooney Mara, who is this actress who kind of broke out a couple of years ago, which is, I think, and I don't know the whole family tree. Is this the granddaughter of the guy who owns the Steelers or whatever? Yeah. You dated. I don't know what the relationship is. One of the Maras, right? Is that? Oh, that's not true, or that is true?
No,
I'm way off.
No, Bridget Rooney, and we had a child, and that's Liam Rooney.
And so Bridget is related to this Rooney Mara by how? How are they related?
She's the granddaughter of the owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah. And Bridget is the daughter of the owner of the Steelers, or
not the owner, one of the brothers.
Okay, so it's very, very confusing. Yeah. I saw that. Kevin Costner is here with us. He's going to be at the Kent Stage this Saturday at 8 p.m. What kind of music do you guys?
Well, it's really more of a rock and roll. It represents kind of, I would say, we write present day about what our lives are about, but some of our songs, go backwards, about what it was like when we were kids. Something like Superman was a song that deals when I'm like 11 years old, and hopefully what everybody feels like when they're 11 years old. But we're usually writing age-appropriate songs, but we break off, and we wrote that concept record, like I said, Famous for Killing Each Other, which is half instrumental and half lyrical, which is just a testament, I think, to how good the band really is. But our show, when there's beer drinking, will be more of a rock and roll show.
Let's talk about Whitney Houston quickly. I think you gave a speech at her funeral. Were you shocked when you heard of her death, or had you guys kept close at all after you filmed The Bodyguard?
I liked Whitney so much, loved her for what she was able to do and how she behaved and how she performed for us. And I felt strong. I waited a good 8-9 months for her. They wanted me to move on. I said no, we're going to wait for Whitney. So we're tied together, and I was shocked. It's not that I didn't understand where her life was going, but I never wanted to insert myself. I have my own life. And for that matter, I don't even really hang around actors. I like them. I have big connections with them, but I have this kind of big life, and some of the guys that I'm with are guys I played Little League with, and so I didn't keep up with Whitney. A couple times when things weren't going her way, people would ask me, "Would you say something to her?" Which I always thought was funny. Why would they be asking me?
Yeah. Why would she listen to you, of all people?
So I wrote her a couple letters during that time. I never got a letter back, but people said it meant something to her on some level. But then when she passed, it was a bit of a shock. But I didn't go on radio. I didn't go on TV, and the airways were filled with people talking about Whitney. I thought I would just be. I don't know what I feel when stuff like that happens, and the last thing I'm thinking is go on the radio and talk about somebody.
Yeah.
But what happened was, that posture wasn't cool. There were a lot of people, cool to me, but a lot of people, I didn't realize the country wanted to hear from me.
They thought that you were snubbing her in a way.
Yeah, nobody was, maybe not snubbing, but it was like, are you going to say something? Are you going to say something? And a week in, by the 6th or 7th day, it was like, there was this kind of like, what do you think about this? Because they'd already heard from 1,000 other people on Pierce Morgan or whatever about who she was. And
I served her at McDonald's once, tonight at Pierce Morgan, the drive-through worker. Yeah.
And, other celebrities and blah, blah, blah. But finally, I was thinking, God, I again, managed this wrong. I should have said something. I had my own feelings. And I actually went out the day she died, and because I had a tape recorder with me, a video thing, and I actually said something to a friend about who she was. I still have that. No one's ever seen it. But I got a call from Dionne Warwick, and she said, "Would you speak at the funeral?" And I immediately said yes, and I immediately regretted saying it, because then I felt, what in the world am I going to say, and why was I even asked? But I have failed to kind of realize how much the public had aligned us.
Well, yeah, I mean, because you may not have spoken to her for years and years, but it's almost like people can watch that movie on HBO at any time, and it's locked in time.
The
almost.
movies are bigger. They're bigger than us.
Yeah,
they're bigger than us, and so I really labored over what to say and how I would say it. And but I said to her, I go, look, if you want me to speak, I said, I can't do a 3-minute thing. If you let me speak till I'm done, I'll do it. If you don't want that, then you. And Dionne was just cool. She said, yeah, man. So I came, and I had no idea how long it was. I was told it was like around 17 minutes, but I wanted to start and I wanted to finish, and that's what I did.
Do you see a lot of this in another? We were talking about sort of perceptions, our regular people perception of Hollywood. One of them is that there's a bunch of substance abuse and drugs and alcohol and that kind of stuff. Do you see a lot of that when you're making movies and things like that? No.
There was more of it in the 80s. There was just more of it. It was just kind of but I don't see as much.
Did you ever get involved in that? Did you ever have?
I tried it. You know, I remember I was a stage manager. And I was a non-union guy, but with union guys coming onto the lot, they're making $300 an hour or a day, and I'm making $30 a day. And I was doing 20 different jobs because I wasn't union. And I remember getting them stuff, and every time I would get them stuff, they'd go, "Hey, come back over here." And there was this little room, and it had like a little line of Coke or something like that. And I did it a couple of times. Every time it seemed like I did a favor for them, they go, hey, but it was kind of a social thing, right? And after about doing that 3 or 4 times, I was a guy that was just trying to buy my first house. And I didn't do well on it. I didn't like it. Just didn't like the way it made me feel. And after another favor, they say, hey, come back. And I remember I looked down at them. I said, how much is that right there? And they said, oh, that's about $20. And I said, I'd rather have $20. I said, I'm trying to buy my first house. And that was death at that point. I was not ever invited back into that shack.
Yeah.
I didn't need to go in there again. And so I always associated that with kind of like a Pavlov's dog kind of thing. And I kind of never did it after that. I just went, I'm going to get myself a house. And these things that you think are favors, my dad would just think it's doing a job.
Did Kevin Costner has to run? I know he has other things that he has to. I know he has other places that he has to go. I'd love to sit here and talk to you all morning. I could sit to talk to Kevin Costner all morning long. You still have that oil? Remember when that BP spill happened and you had that machine that you had invested in or whatever?
That I put over $20 million. It was no small thing.
No kidding.
Yeah, I did it. I saw this thing out of the DOE 20 years ago. I thought every time we see an oil spill, it's the same. It ends up on the shore. There's people in rubber boots. There's people with pitchforks who didn't create the oil spill, and there's animals like this.
Right.
And I kind of just dawned on me, and I saw this little machine that was about that tall, and I bought it, took it out of the DOE, the Department of Energy, and I scaled it up, and it cost me $20 million. And I knew 20 years ago how to get the oil out of the water faster than anybody in the world.
And then it took that huge oil spill. And what's funny is you come forward at that time, and people start goofing on you, like, "Oh, Kevin Costner to the rescue, Waterworld," and
No, it's true. Well, there's a big machine out there, and it's called the oil industry, and they can make anybody look like a fool. And it's easy to make an actor go like, "Oh, he's suddenly an environmentalist. Oil companies haven't put as much money into cleaning up oil as I have.
Yeah,
I've put more money into anybody, and I'm not a company. And I still have that company. I'm down in Brazil. They're about ready to clean up their act down there. And we still haven't had legislation since that big oil spill. There's no spill. They still think that they want to sink the oil or burn it. And if you had a big thing out here in Lake Erie, you just ask yourself, would you rather have the oil out of the water, or would you rather have it on the bottom, or would you rather have it burn? And the answer is not even 50-50. Most people go, yeah,
Yeah.
Gone. Right. Let's take it out. So I've never given up. I'm kind of I'm a plotter, all right, but I don't give up.
Have you made the $20 million back yet?
No, but I will. But that's what I teach my kids. I did something 20 years ago. I don't give up. My daughter is down in Brazil right now, and I can do it better than anybody in the world. I know I will. I know it will succeed. And you don't see me doing press about it, but the day it works, I will do press. I mean, I know it works, but the day it's really adopted as a way of doing business out there, then I'll probably make a little speech.
When you are rich, when you have a bunch of money or you're famous, people tend to sue you a lot. You've been involved in countless lawsuits. Stephen Baldwin sued you over this. He was an investor in this oil thing.
He was not an investor. He was nothing in it. He happened to be at a dinner. It was the oddest thing in the world, and I won't bore the population, but he didn't. It's a silly.
I thought, see, the story I heard was that he invested in this, and then you went and you sold it to someone, and you go, I'm taking all the profits, and we'll buy you out before. And that didn't happen that way.
He wasn't. Without boring you, you can just read between the lines of. You just look at two people and try to figure out what the story is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not even close.
That's got to suck about being. You've probably been in what, hundreds of lawsuits throughout your life, I bet, right?
Well, just figure out if Stephen's still in the environmental business. See if he's still in the oil business. Was in it for a month.
Yeah. Kevin Costner, he's got to run. He is going to be with his band at the Kent stage. Oh, let me ask you one last question before you go, because you were famously. We talked about your first wife. You went through a divorce. You I don't know if the number is accurate, but they said you paid like $80 million or something like that. Is that, I ask guys this, just regular guys that we talk to on the phone about, I've never been married. Do you believe that it's fair, or do you think guys get screwed over? My impression is that guys get screwed over. And I'm not asking for you to comment on you personally or whatever, but I mean, it's like, I don't know how that's even possible. You're the one going out there and working and earning this living or whatever, and then to give half of it to someone. I can't fathom that. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about it, because I read that you gave $80 million in a divorce, which is mind-blowing. I feel like I should reach into my wallet, give you $100 or something. But, I mean, what's your opinion on that? Do we need law changes?
I think there should be some changes in a lot of stuff. You could start with that, and you could start with our own government. You could really start going down the list, and I think the old fashioned of like what's fair just somehow has gotten lost in almost everything, and I think look, half the problems in America aren't really problems. You could really solve them with some good common sense. The other things, when you're talking about age, when you're talking about other stuff, that stuff really is a problem. Why? Yeah. Because by definition, we haven't got a handle on it. That's a problem. But a lot of the stuff that seems to irritate us, that seems obvious, they're not really problems. We just can't find a collective will to solve.
We're watching Honey Boo Boo, Kevin. Yeah. Everyone wants to do that instead of solve the problems. Kevin Costner and his band Modern West are going to be at the Kent stage Saturday at 8 p.m. It's at 175 East Main Street down in Kent. Their website, and you can get tickets there, thekentstage.com. That's the website. And your website is Kevin Costner modernwest.com. Let's see here. Here we go. This is one of your songs here?
Yeah. This is Stand Strong. Might as well be dedicated to the tribe.
Kevin Costner modernwest.com is the website address. Kevin, I appreciate you coming in. Thank you. Good. By the way, this Draft Day movie that you're doing, I don't know, I kind of know a little bit about it, but I think that's cool. I'm glad that you guys are out here and filming. When's that going to come out?
Probably Draft Day next year, but I got to roll.
Yes. Kevin, thank you, my man.
Thank you,
I appreciate it. We'll be right back on Rover's Morning Glory. Hang on.
I got your back and